Hi, so as usual, it's been a little while. I am the queen of procrastinating and not actually uploading when I say I will. So there you go. I'm the same with my podcast. It's meant to be weekly and it's kind of whenever I remember to upload an episode. Yeah, things have just been a bit mad recently. I'm sure you already know. All the coronavirus stuff that's been going on still. And things are just constantly changing. Things are different wherever you are in the country. Like I'm in the UK and things are just all over the place. And then I am kind of in the middle of also moving house. So starting this weekend, I need to start packing. And I am going to pick up the keys to my new flat on Monday, which is kind of crazy. It's not the best, it's not the most ideal moving in the middle of a pandemic, but you know, it's got to be done. So that's also happening. So in a couple of weeks you should expect this background to... Well, the background probably won't change, to be honest, because I'll still be filming in front of my bookshelves, but the location of my bookshelves will change. And then also something that I really need to touch on in this video, because it's kind of relevant to the topic of today's video, is all of the protests that have been going on recently for the Black Lives Matter movement. Obviously you definitely know by now about the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many other people that is just devastating. And I know a lot of people are saying, why is it taken until now for kind of the movement to explode and kind of everyone to start caring about it? But I think a lot of the time it only takes one catalyst to kind of spark something, to literally spark a revolution. That's what's happening now. And unfortunately, that catalyst was the murder of George Floyd. It never should have happened. Obviously, it's completely devastating. Obviously, me standing here as another white person on BookTube, in the book community in general, I can often feel like I don't want to say the wrong thing, or it can often feel like we don't really know how to help, and obviously that's massively to do with white privilege. I have always known that. It's so hard to kind of know the best way to help, the best way to be an ally. But I've just kind of learned recently that just saying something, even if you're not sure of the right thing to say, speaking up and saying something is a million times better than not saying anything at all. The only wrong thing to say is nothing. And I think it was Meghan Markle said that she did a video recently where I think it was a video for like the graduating class of her college that she went to. She said that in her video. She said the only wrong thing to say is nothing at all. If you're a white person and you want to be an ally, just speak up about it. If you accidentally say something that could come across the wrong way, if someone corrects you, accept that you're being corrected and apologise and do better, and kind of just learn how to be an ally. That's all we can do. Obviously, if you can go out to protests and if you can kind of take it a step further and you can really get involved in the movement, then that's incredible. Like recently, I'm in Newport in Wales, and there was recently a protest. It was a couple of days ago, and the police were saying how incredible it was. Like it was a silent protest, or it was like a peaceful protest. And just seeing so many people that I know, so many white people especially that I know, going to these protests just kind of gives me a little bit of hope that all white people don't suck. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to get out to the protests. I'm gutted because I really wanted to, but I don't own a face mask and I don't want to go out into crowds without a face mask. I work from home, I always have done, so I just have opted not to go out anywhere while this pandemic has happened. And the protests tend to be while I'm working, so I'm gutted that I haven't been able to go to any. Like, I would absolutely love to go out to one of these protests, but if you can't, there are many people that can't go out to protests for many reasons. There are so many things that you can do to help, and I will link to loads of resources in the description. There are just things you can sign. It takes 2 seconds to sign a petition and it's free. You can donate to organisations if you're able to. Again, I know that not everyone is able to donate. If you can't donate to organisations, don't feel bad. Obviously not everyone has the money to be able to donate to organisations, but you can still help just signing all the petitions and just speaking up about it on whatever platform you have. Even that just helps kind of spread the word, and it helps show that you are an ally. Just listen to people who actually know what they're talking about. Listen to people who are affected by it every single day, whose lives are like all of the stories that you hear about racism. This is their reality every day. Listen to those people above everyone else and amplify their voices, because they're the people that matter right now. They're the people that are important. And I just want to say, if you're one of those people who is an all lives matter person, then get in the bin. You need to understand why saying all lives matter sucks right now. I know, obviously, everyone's life matters, obviously, but right now that's not the point. I've seen so many really great comparisons where people say you wouldn't go to a fundraiser event for breast cancer and go in saying, well, I don't support this because all cancers matter, or you wouldn't, I don't know, there's just so many different, like, if you spin it a different way, you'll realise how dumb the all lives matter thing is. I've deleted so many Facebook friends already who were just spouting all of this nonsense, and they're kind of only really caring about the pandemic. And I know it's an awkward time at the moment because of the pandemic, and people are trying to protest during a time when they're telling us that crowds shouldn't meet, like there shouldn't be big crowds of people. There are so many people saying it's the wrong time to do it at the moment because of the pandemic, but there is never a wrong time to do it. It should have been done way sooner than this, but like I said, it often just takes one catalyst for the whole world to kind of listen up and realise they need to do better, and I'm really glad that it's happening now. So, to kind of relate to all of that, I thought today I would share some books that I've read recently by Black authors that I have absolutely loved and I recommend to everyone. There are so many out there, and I know I need to read a lot more. I need to kind of do better with reading more diverse books. I think I've been focused a lot the past couple of years on like LGBT and trying to find diverse books in terms of LGBT characters, because that's been like what I've been exploring myself, is like my sexuality, so that's been big for me. But I think now the time has come for me to realise that a lot of the books I read are by white authors, and there are so many books out there that are flipping incredible that I'm missing out on just because I just don't even know that they exist. So if you have any recommendations for books by Black authors, please let me know in the comments, because I really want to read them. But yeah, without further ado, I will share 5 books that I have read recently by Black authors that I absolutely will you to read because they are just incredible. So the first book that I'm going to mention, and it's one that I am kind of shouting about a lot recently, I'm telling everyone to read it because it's incredible, is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. You might know her as the author of The Poet X, which I'm currently reading. I'm about halfway through. This book is about 2 sisters, or half-sisters, who don't realise that each other exist. One of them is in the Dominican Republic, and the other one of them is in New York, I think, in America. They share the same dad, who is also Dominican, but they don't know that each other exists. until their dad dies in a plane crash, and everything kind of tumbles down around them and their life is just kind of changed forever, and they realise then that each other exists, and it's all about them coming together. It's just so great. It's written as a verse novel, and if you know me, you know that I adore verse novels. I have a whole video actually talking about verse novels I love. And this is just so powerful. I feel like it's one of the most powerful verse novels I've ever read. The way that Elizabeth Acevedo writes is just so incredible, and she just has this magical ability to just write such powerful poetry. If you're not a big poetry person, please read it anyway. It doesn't... The thing with verse fiction is that you kind of get so into it that you forget that you're reading poetry. Like, the story is just so powerful that you get so sucked into the story and the characters that the verse just kind of works so well, and I just adore this book so much. I love it. So the next one is another poetry book. I will get on to other like kind of general fiction in a minute, but I've got another poetry book, and that is Somebody Give This Heart a Pen by Sophia Thacker. I read this very recently and I loved it so much. Again, it's got so many powerful sections in it that I actually kind of, you can see my tabs in the top, I tabbed it and I highlighted it, and I shared some highlighted bits all over social media because it's just, some parts, especially right now, are perfect. If I try and find the bit that I highlighted, there's one called Fear-mongering, and it starts with, police aren't after conversations, they're after culprits. They don't sharpen their fangs for us to feel safe. And even just that paragraph on its, well, stanza on its own, it kind of, right now especially, it just summarises everything that people feel towards the police. The police are supposed to make you feel protected, and right now they're making people feel scared to just walk down the street, especially black people. And I think even just that on its own is it's just so powerful on its own. Powerful seems to be the word of this video. Oh, they really are. I just can't think of a better word than just powerful. Like, they make you think, and the poems in this book are all about the kind of like the poet with her experience of being black and her experience with her parents and her religion, and so good. Again, if you're not into poetry, I still urge you to pick this up and read it. It's really short. It's like 100 and something pages, like 107 pages. So it's not massively long. It's not like you see poetry books that are like massive chunks and they're just intimidating. This is, I think, a really good entry point if you haven't read a lot of poetry, and I massively recommend it. So next I have fiction, kind of just general prose fiction. The first one is one that has been out for a long time. I read this when I was in school, but I completely forgot everything that happens in it, pretty much. And I reread it recently. I did like a whole kind of personal readathon where I read books that I studied in high school. Again, I'll link that above. And one of those was Noughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. I remembered kind of the basics about this plot, but I didn't remember a lot about it. So when I reread it a couple of months ago, oh my god. Again, I'm gonna use the word powerful again. We can probably count how many times I say it in this video. This is the story of Callum and Seffi, and it's kind of, the whole world is kind of flipped, where black people are almost kind of more superior to white people, and it kind of, especially if you're white, it shows you how it would work if the tables were turned and everything was reversed, and it teaches you so many lessons. I know I've seen I've seen a few people saying that they didn't like it for that reason, because they were like, why does it take the tables being turned on white people for white people to realise how hard it is to face racism, and I completely get that. It shouldn't take kind of having to identify with the people that are being oppressed, but it is just so great. I think it taught me a lot and I loved it. And I feel like I can't say too much about it. Sorry, I'm looking outside because people just got out their car and they're like watching me film through my window. That's uncomfortable. But yeah, I can't say too much about this without ruining the whole story. You just need to read it if you haven't already. I know it's very famous. If you haven't read it already, then please do. Because I don't even want to ruin the story. But it's basically kind of a love story between a white and a black teenager and the kind of impact that has on their life. And it's just devastating. And the ending is one of the most shocking endings I think I've read ever. I did not see that ending coming at all. Yeah, this I don't want to say anything else. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it yet, but yes, this one, read it. This is also a whole series, and I have the next one on the series on my TBR, which I really need to get to. So the next one is an anthology. So again, it's something a little bit different. It's an anthology of stories and poetry all about change. It is A Change Is Gonna Come by multiple authors. I will list all of the authors in the description. I'll link to all of these books on Goodreads as well if you want to find out more about them. But it's written by 12 Black, Asian and minority authors. And it is just so great. There's something for everyone in here, and I read this a little while ago now, so I feel like I need to reread it, but there are some in here that I just really loved. There's ones about facing oppression, and there's ones about finding a new family, kind of like finding a community of your own. And one great thing about anthologies is that you can just pick it up in little chunks if you want to. You can read the whole thing, or you can just kind of read a story a week or a story a day or whatever you want to do. And it's really good for anyone for that reason. Like, you don't have to read this whole book in one go. You can kind of pick it up as and when you have time. So yeah, again, I recommend this to everyone. Wait, my camera's dying. Why does this always happen every time I film? Okay, I'm back. So the fifth and final book on this little list is one of my favourite books, literally of all time now. I love this book so flippin' much. So much of it just speaks to me and I love it so much. And that is Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. This is the proof, so it's not the actual cover. I'll put the cover here in case you recognise it. But I have the proof of it. This is the story of Simone, who is HIV positive, and she's getting to an age, she's a teenager, she's getting to an age where she wants to explore relationships and sex, and obviously being HIV positive, that puts kind of a barrier in the way to just being able to freely explore things, as a lot of teenagers do. It's all about kind of sexuality, and she has two dads, she has gay dads, who are just amazing. I love them so much. She has friends who, again, are all different sexualities, and the main character herself is also kind of questioning whether she's bisexual. There's just great friendships, and they have such good conversations about so many things that teenagers normally discuss, and they're these conversations that aren't included in a lot of YA. YA is getting better with talking about things that teenagers actually talk about. But yeah, this one's just so great. And you also learn about kind of the reality of being HIV positive as a teenager. There's also musical theatre in this, which is another reason I love it so much. Like, Simone is a musical theatre nerd, and she is part of her like musical theatre society in her school, and she kind of directs the show. They're doing Rent, so again, for her, Rent is a very important show because it's all about HIV and AIDS. So I just love this book so much. I talk about it on Twitter all the time, and yeah, I think it's my book of the year and last year. I adore this book so much. Please read it. I just love it so much. And Cameron Garrett is also a great person to follow on Twitter. She talks a lot about really important topics, and she's also a film student, and I did a film degree, so we should just be best friends. So there you go. There are 5 books that I've read fairly recently by Black authors that I just really loved. I completely adore them, and I please urge everyone to go and read them. Pick up a copy of them, because you will just, I pretty much guarantee you'll love at least one of them. So yeah, like I said, I will put all the information below in the description. And I will also put some resources where you can go and sign petitions, and you can donate to organisations, and you can learn more about the Black Lives Black. Oh my god. I need to speak slower because I just can't talk. There's also information where you can learn about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you can get involved. Please get involved in any way you can. Things have already started changing since all the protests and stuff have happened. This is the biggest civil rights movement in history now. I've seen things where there's now protests and demonstrations and things in every single US state, which I don't think has ever happened. And there's a growing number of countries that are also getting involved. In the UK, I've seen more and more protests being advertised, and it's incredible to see. But it's also very sad that this has to be happening still in 2020. Like, a comment that kind of stays with me is one that where someone local commented on the Newport protest saying, "I marched in the protests in 1950 and now I'm watching my grandson march in the protests in 2020. And when you think that that's a 70-year span, and things still haven't changed. Like, things have barely changed. Like, we're still marching for rights that people were marching for 70 plus years ago. It's so sad that it still has to be happening, but it's incredible to see everyone coming together to kind of make things right, and things have already started changing. Like, laws are being passed. Breonna Taylor has just had a law passed that says that I think it stops people from, like the police, from being able to get into people's houses, which is ridiculous that it happens anyway. That story is just devastating. But yeah, before this video gets like 4 hours long, check out the description. And if you haven't already, please go and sign all of the petitions, and if you can, donate to organisations that'll help. And just learn, just kind of vow to yourself that you will do better and you'll be a better ally. Listen to people that should be listened to, and we all just need to try and do our best. And that's all we can do. I'll see you soon. Bye.